So if you have not been to Beth El for a bar mitzvah, which I have not, last night the bar mitzvah gave a speech, but what we're most interested in hearing about is inviting the student to be in conversation with our tradition. I had many conversations with Daniel, and this morning we're going to share some of the conversations we had about the Torah portion and be in conversation with one another. So Daniel, maybe share with everybody here, and don't be nervous because it's really, people have loved you for 13 years and a good crowd. So Daniel, if you could share maybe one of the first questions that you had about the Parsha with the community.
Shabbat Shalom. So my question was about all of the clothes that the Kohen Gadol wore. There was a description about how on the hem there were bells. There were bells. In fact, I'm gonna put the Torah away. Have the bells this month? Okay. So there were bells, and the truth is we don't exactly know. It's not exactly clear whether the bells sort of were empty and they banged into each other, and that's how they made the noise, or whether there was like something inside the bell, but it made it tinkle like this whenever he walked. And I was sort of curious about why the Kohen Gadol would need to have bells on his robe.
So jingle bells.
Jingle bells, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are some of the answers that you came up with?
Well, I just happened to be reading this teaching from the Beit Yaakov, who is a Hasidic Rebbe and the son of Mordechai Leiner of Ishbitz. And he said that when the purpose of the bells was so that when the Kohen Gadol went into the Holy of Holies, he said that the shell of the bell was supposed to remind him of his nothingness. That basically that it wasn't on any merit on his behalf, of his own, that he got to go into the Holy of Holies, that basically he was an office walking in. And yet, on the other hand, that the Pa'amon, sort of the inside, was a reminder to the Kohen Gadol that he also should be just completely who he is. Just full in who he is with merits and faults and all of it. And that when he was supposed to hear this tinkling as he walked, to remind him also that the Holy of Holies is a beautiful place, but the real work is to be done back in the world.
A gorgeous idea, the notion that the bells, the hollowness of the bells, represent a person who is their title, their job, where you have to empty yourself of ego and all of that. You're just your job. And the pomegranates were a representation of the density of the person, like the you-ness of you. And you're not a regular bar mitzvah. You're very special in many ways, and you are a rabbi. And I'm curious if you could reflect a little bit about that tension. Aviva Zornberg, in her article about this that we studied together, calls this the sustainable tension, that we need both. We need the office-ness of our rabbi-ness, but we also need to be us. And maybe talk a little bit about what that tension's like for you.
I think it's hard. I think that one of the blessings of this community that I've experienced is a permission to be me, to bring some of the silliness, to bring some of the ruach, to make mistakes, and to be myself, and to have connections and friendships. And at the same time, to to understand that there's certain moments I'm very humbled and honored, and I don't know, those are words all fall short, but sort of what it means to be able to stand with people in very big moments, sometimes very dark moments, sometimes very moments of huge blessing, and to in some way carry forward the Torah and the history and the traditions of our people.
One of my mentors in rabbinical school talked about how, when you show up as a new rabbi, you have the title rabbi, which is a kind of power, but it dissipates really quickly. It really doesn't really get you very much, but that over time, right, and that's the power of the office, right, the power that you get for sitting behind the desk, but over time, you develop relationships with people, and that is a different kind of connection, a different kind of influence, and you share your own vulnerabilities, and you're presented with moments that really test your leadership, and that's really what turns you into the rabbi of the people in this room. It wasn't just the title that you got when you graduated from rabbinical school. I want to talk a little bit about the sound, and the notion that, right, like it's an image that's not just a visual image. There's an oral piece to it. What do you think rabbis need to be reminded of, or what do you feel like you need to be reminded of to have that sort of grounding sound in your life?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I think the temptations of the office, I'll say two pieces about this. One, when the Kohen Gadol, when he goes into the Holy of Holies, there's a temptation to stay there, right? Because it's all spiritual. It's pointing towards this amazing goodness and amazing power and amazing thing that can't be described. And yet the bells are there to remind the Kohen Gadol to just use a phrase, to make it relevant, right? In other words, if all of this stuff are just ideas, but they don't turn back to people's lives, if they don't turn back and make us better people, the community has heard me say that if you come to synagogue and you're not a different person outside in the world because you've been here, then in some way, a lot of ways, this has failed. And so I think the tinkling of the bells is a reminder to make those connections, that it doesn't diminish the Torah, it actually deepens the Torah when you make those connections between the words of our tradition and life that we're living, and the questions and the struggles and the problems that we face. And I also think that the tinkling, the sound is there as a reminder. Again, one of my teachers, Rabbi Wolpe, once said that when he would say vidui with someone, at a certain point he asked him, like, by what right do I recite vidui say some words for someone at the end of their life? And his wife turned to him and said, it's not you're actually not good enough to do that. But it's not being done by you, it's being done through you. And so the jingling of the bells tries to remind me of what's being done through me, but not by me.
One of the things that many of you probably know about Rabbi Greyber, in that a previous life he was a cheerleader, literally a cheerleader, like leading people in cheers for around swimming world. Yeah. And there's a
not like pom pom.
I was told before this weekend there was like a moment where you led the song "Shout" at a thing. Yes. So maybe tonight. I hope that's going to happen again tonight. So I think the bells are also like, they're that serious sound, right? Like, remember, limits, all that. I think they're also a happy sound, right? That's like, great, look, a nice little, right? You can imagine people leaving also feeling like really buoyed by having heard that sound, having seen what they saw. So what's the cheer? What do you wanna what would you love for the people here to think of as like the cheer when they hear the sound like that? But also, what's the cheer of Judaism? What's the good news? I know you just had a program with the church, so
Right. As they say here in the South, the good news. Look, the good news, I referenced before that there's a lot of challenges going on in the world. And this weekend was about taking a moment to celebrate. And I'm honored to have a piece of it celebrate me, and I'm trying to inhabit that. But I think the deepest idea, we went through a pandemic. There's a lot of challenges out there in the world, and we have each other. There are a lot of places in the world that, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper to say, we disagree with each other, in case you didn't know. And there are a lot of places in the world that are pushing us into silos and pushing us to be with people who either agree with us or who look like us. And this is an amazing experience. I said last night to Kevin, just take a moment and listen to the amazing beauty that we'll do this in a few minutes of us all just singing together. And being in a community of difference and committing to each other to take care of each other. And don't ever underestimate the power, the joy of that commitment to love each other and to take care of each other and to be with each other in the deepest sense of community. I think that's the prayer, the hope, the joy.
I'm going to take you off the hot seat now, as you say. And I'm going to offer you first my own private bracha, and then Birkat Konim. Is there like a bar mitzvah box that I can stand up? Because I don't know, up my reach.